Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Anne-Marie, we have had kind of a theme lately. Well, a number of themes have been going on lately, but there's a theme we haven't actually done much in a while, and it was a theme we had for the longest time. I mean, for a while, it seemed like just about every other guest who joined us fit the theme. And I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up about that because the theme is back. Because we're joined today by somebody who is an expert at helping particularly women over 40, deal with the various kinds of overwhelm that go on in their life. And we haven't really honed in on that lately, but there was a time there, like we were doing it practically every show, right?
Yeah, but I'm here for it today.
Okay, so this is good timing today, right?
Yes, very much so. I don't know where time is going. I don't know how to fit everything in. So I'm
all right. Well, we're going to see if we can address that. That's a good thing. So we're joined today by Michelle Ford, and Michelle has a master's in public health, but she's also somewhat of an expert actually in the whole topic of overwhelm, having dealt with considerable amounts of it in her own life, including some pretty serious stuff that happened a few years back where she was just dealing with everything going on in her family. But it led her down this road, and she's basically turned her life into being somebody who helps other women to, wrestle with these kinds of things. So we're going to learn more about that. Michelle, welcome to the program. I'm loving that you're wearing a Yankees hat. I'm a Yankees fan as well, but glad to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Lovely to meet you both.
And give us a little bit more about that background. I was kind of hinting at it, but I don't really like telling somebody else's story. So tell your story. Like, how did you end up on this path?
Yeah, so I'm a type A personality that grew up with type A parents and, did everything you're supposed to do. And my children today think it's very funny that I'm so much more chill because I was not while they were growing up. But there's this expectation that comes at you, and a number of health problems early in my parents' life, because they're actually okay now, but happened earlier than I thought that it would have. Single mom from the time that my children were 9 months and 2, pretty much. They're 14 months apart, and I worked and wanted to be everything to everybody, like a lot of women do. And while I had a good set of family around me to help, you have this thing sold to us that we're perfectly capable of being the best mom, daughter, sister, wife, coworker, boss, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is that you are, you can do it all. And the reality is that something's going to suffer. And I got to a point where it was really my health. And I have an autoimmune, which someone recently told me that a lot of women over 40 end up with various autoimmune diagnoses. And a lot of them are, and I'm not an expert in that arena, and I'm not a medical doctor, but related to stress. And I started thinking about kind of my public health background, what I went to school for, why I believed in it. It's much public health wellness education, not like the epidemiology part of it. Right. And there's something called the 6 Dimensions of Wellness that's 50 years old this year from the National Wellness Institute. And those 6 dimensions of wellness are how all of us, men, women, young, old, it doesn't matter. We all have those 6 dimensions of wellness, and we're kind of on a roller coaster ride of where we are. You may be really great in one and really bad in another. And to simplify it, and a lot of people will say, my work life will be great, but my love life isn't, or one of my children is doing fabulous and the other one is a hot mess, or whatever the case may be. And it's kind of like what I like to refer to as a giant game of whack-a-mole. And while that may be fun at the carnival, it's really not fun when it's your life. And it's constantly things popping up. So the program that I have and what I kind of put together to try and help predominantly women, and it's not unnecessarily relevant for younger women, but by the time you get to 40, you've experienced a lot of the things that I'm kind of referencing. So I guess the earlier crowd could kind of maybe like ward it off, but that's kind of how I got where I am today.
That's very interesting. I mean, among other things, the fact that you're talking about the whack-a-mole piece of it, the piece that basically feels like it's one thing after another coming up. When you told that in connection to this 6 what did you call this? I'd never heard of this. The 6 forms of wellness. What is that?
Dimensions.
So you've heard of it, Anne-Marie?
No, I've not heard of it. I'm intrigued to hear more though.
So 50 years ago in the US, the National Institute of Wellness created something saying, you know, we all use things like emotional and physical, like those we kind of know. Those are like, we talk about it. But the reality is that there's 6 dimensions that we all fall under. And physical is one, and that's the one that we normally feel the most, know about, we're most aware of in our bodies, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But they're always caused by things that are truly physical, which now, you know, over time we know about the stress factor of how it takes a toll on your physical health and well-being. But the other ones are social, spiritual, and that doesn't necessarily mean religion. It can mean, you know, it's your beliefs, your value system.
Right.
It is. One is emotional. You kind of see that one interchanged sometimes with other words, but for the purposes of what I teach, I use the original 6. And occupational, which isn't just your job, you're paid, it's your doing time. So a stay-at-home parent or a retiree still have occupational wellness. And then the last one is your intellectual wellness. And the thing that's so interesting to me about intellectual wellness is that it isn't about how smart you are, how high your IQ is, how many degrees you have. It has to do with whether or not you are stimulating your brain and doing things that are creative and keep parts of you more awake and alive, which I'm sure you're probably seeing now why these are connected, because you can name any of these and choose how it connects to this, that, and the other. But one of the more interesting ones is intellectual wellness being directly connected and correlated to your physical well-being when it comes to things like dementia as you age, and why people say to do puzzles and Sudoku and different things like that. So they're all tied together. And when you get a diagnosis or you have a bad breakup or some other like loss in your family, something that happens to you, typically we notice it in one area. We may or may not be able to name it, but you're actually interconnected. And so my program is kind of to help you figure out, where am I depleted and where am I full? Because the goal is to borrow from the full to refill the depleted, because your life is constantly going to be doing that balancing act.
I'm kind of blown away that there are 6 formalized dimensions of wellness put out by the government. I mean, I didn't even know they did that. We talk about this stuff all the time. It's not like this is not part of the normal conversation. I just didn't know it was formalized.
Like, and it's not, really? It's not the government. So the National Wellness Institute is not a government agency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then that makes a little bit more sense. It's sad to say, but it's true. It fits the norm. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I just got that somebody formalized that. That's really cool. I think it's a very good thing. It makes me feel better. So, but once you have that perspective, now since you're looking through a lens of these 6 different dimensions, those dimensions are going to not only color how you connect these various elements together, but they're also going to color how you attack the thing that seems most important in your life, I would think. I mean, if that's the way you're structuring everything, it's going to control how you handle these kinds of things.
Right. And interestingly, part of what led me to actually make this a formal program was I kept seeing a lot of the what people could define what's wrong or what's going on or what they believe to be going on or their personal struggle. And then it would like give you maybe the why and then never the how. The how was always a one size fits all approach. Things like the hot ones right now are, you know, apparently we're undernourished for protein or something because everything has protein in it today, or an Aura ring, or one of the smart rings, which I don't have anything against any of the things that I'm saying, but while it tells you all these things, what do you do with that information? So where's the how? So I kept going through and I'm like, okay, you need to do this yoga, or you need to put chart and do plays in museums or read or podcasts, whatever, like intellectual stimulation. Social time needs to be rewarding, not obligatory. Those, so and each one gets into you can get very deep into kind of the what that dimension is. But what do I do with the information and how do I make a change is where I really dug in, because I said, me, Michelle, you have to have a what, why, and how. And the part you just asked about is the why. And so I also have put kind of our personalities into behavioral patterns. And you fall into just kind of a more fun way of doing it. Probably most people have taken a Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or some personality test, and they're usually fun and entertaining. And unless that's your background or you're studying it for some other reason, most people kind of, it fades off and you kind of forget what it was or whatever. And in this case, so I said, well, you're either one of three things. You're either and we call it the Carnival of Modern Life. That's this particular exploration that I do. You're either a tilt-a-whirl rider, which if you imagine kind of like a chaos junkie type person, a Ferris wheel rider who is like very cautious. I'm just going to hang out up here and kind of watch what's going on, see slow, or a merry-go-round or carousel rider that does the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so that's how I get into the behavioral patterns that then address what you just mentioned, Walt, which is how do you deal with it? Because my social dimension depletion isn't going to look like Anne Marie's, isn't going to look like yours, isn't going to look like, so that then how I fix it or go about replenishing it, if that's the one that's depleted, is also going to have to do with my behavioral patterns. So they're tied together. So before we can get to the how, we got to figure out first what's depleted, then why, what am I doing, behavioral, then the how. And the how is something I call a one anchor ritual. And it's baby steps instead of 17 things at once.
Okay. By the way, I love the fact that your metaphors are all amusement park stuff.
Yeah, it's very it's actually very nautical. So like it's navigating your world is my lifestyle brand, and then I kind of did a holy well under it, so like an anchor. And yeah, it's I've seen enough corporate trainings that I've been on, either doing them or taking them myself, and I'm like, you gotta put some creative and fun kind of things into it, so people want to know, well, wait, I want to know which ride I am, and so then it's a good way to get engaged.
Well, it also was somewhat relevant to me because after my divorce, I'm a musician. After my divorce, I wrote a little piece that I call the merry-go-round, spelled Marry. So when you're talking about the different rides, that's one of the first things that came to my mind was that.
I might need to use that as a theme song on one of my.
That's really what it was. It was kind of a theme song of the end of my marriage, and it's like the whole thing is like it's a waltz tempo kind of a thing. So like the feel of being on the merry-go-round that you can't get off. It was that right. Kind of a feel to it. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
But even more importantly, I mean, the sixth dimension you talked about, those six dimensions include the things like the emotional side, spiritual side, basically the inner world side. And I want to focus in on that for a moment. That's something we talk about a lot here, about how important it is to do that inner work, and how no matter what it is you're trying to address in your life, if you don't do the inner work, if you just do the external stuff, you're not going to really get anywhere. So I'm glad that those elements are in there, because that's a really important piece from my perspective. But talk about your perspective. What role do you see those inner world pieces playing in the holy well program that you do?
Mm-hmm. Much deeper than I think people think, especially at face value, if you only look at the word intellectual wellness or spiritual wellness or even occupational wellness, and you as a rhetorical, you think just in terms of I go to church or I don't, or I like my job or I don't. Like those are very simple things. This is, to your point, much deeper way of kind of looking at it, and how does that value or that time that I spend doing whatever it is, if it's occupational, or how engaged am I creatively in my brain, those all are tied together to the other kind of core ones that people think of the most, like social, emotional, and physical. And knowing how those underlying ones that aren't as action oriented, because if I tell you you're physically unwell as a doctor, a friend, whomever, you read it, you're okay, I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to go running. I'm going to change my diet. Like there's very known ways to address that problem. I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to get my A1C check, whatever. There's not the same list. I mean, even emotional health, there's a lot of mental health help out there compared to what we used to have, and directive on it. Spiritual health, unless it is specifically something that if you're Buddhist, for example, you know where to go, like that's your thing. But it's your value system, and when did you lose track of it, and how for me, my value system was tied to occupational wellness in a lot of ways, because I work in government affairs in the addiction space, and addiction space is a very, very can be a very, very emotional and trying world to work in. So learning how they're tied together helps you not only, I like to use the words, refill the depleted. So, because you're always going to be juggling the balls. If you could juggle all 6 at once, then you're just Wonder Woman or Superman, because no one, you're going to, I'm like, if you've got 2 or 3 that are going well, you're doing really well, because life is going to come at you and give you a depletion in some other place. So those underlying ones, they're usually places you can borrow to give your like obvious ones a little bit of a boost when you think maybe you can't. I'll give you an example. So if I am physically unwell, because that's the one most people resonate with the most, they can get it. And I'm not talking about somebody who's in the ICU, somebody who's obviously surviving, thriving on day-to-day basis, but something's wrong physically, whether it's because they've gained weight, whether they have a diabetes diagnosis, something like that. They can lean into their intellectual wellness or their spiritual wellness or their occupational wellness in ways that they probably wouldn't automatically think of. You would think social. I need my friends to help me get through X or whatever, or my family. Emotionally, I need to see a therapist or talk through this. Those are obvious. But how you maybe look at your doing time and say, okay, is my doing time, whether it's your work all day long or how you address your job, because I'm not saying that someone or all of us can just go, well, I have this illness, so therefore I can't do anything anymore. But you can say, all right, well, let me analyze this and take a look. Am I burning the candle at both ends and not getting proper rest, which is actually making me more tired and less available during the hours that I need to be? Therefore, that's taken a physical hit. Well, I can address it in my occupational wellness, and it's going to have a direct reflection in my physical. And I'm giving very, very simple examples here. But as you get into the details, I do a lot more of the kind of dig down deep, because each one of us would have very different examples for each of the 6 dimensions of wellness.
And the key point, particularly from your viewpoint, because of the path that you were on and the experiences you had, was aimed toward the idea: am I being too much of a giver to others? Am I orienting myself toward making sure that everybody else is taken care of without actually taking care of myself? That's a fairly critical point, because the way I tend to think about the same concept is it's great to be a giver, but you also have to be a receiver. If you're only one and not the other, that's going to be a problem. It's great to be a receiver, but you also have to be a giver. If you're only one but not the other, it's going to be a problem. It's the balance that's the kind of life that you're looking for, and it's the balance that people struggle the most to find. So let's talk about that piece for a second.
So that's one of the things that I really talk about with women, is that you may not be expected by society, your particular societal norm. You may be self-inflicted. Like for me, a lot of it was self-inflicted. I thought I had to be, do, go, all of those things. But the most common way people say it is fill your own cup first. And I like to say there's a reason when you get on an airplane that they tell you to help the person with you. To put your mask on before you help the person next to you. Right. But in the women that I'm talking with and working with, you get to the stage in life where your own health, wellness, all in every one of these 6 dimensions, some more than others, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't be there for the other people that you want to be there for, whether it is the sandwich generation of that college kid that needs you at parents' weekend, or that 4th grader that still needs the art project help, all the way up to the parent that needs the medical attention help or rides, or if you're going through a loss or anything. There's just so many challenges that I think we face that we don't really know where to turn to. And like I said, it comes back to whack-a-mole. So for me, it's hold on a minute. Where's the depletion? Where is it coming from? I personally am a tilt-a-whirl rider. Like, I can do all this. I'm chaos. So I know that about myself. And so then I know to rein whatever it is in. And you kind of got to learn to check it. But instead of people saying, well, just don't worry about it, or what I know a lot of women, I have boys that are in their early 20s now, but relax. Do not tell me to relax. Like, that is just not something that we like to be told. It's like, if I could relax, I would, So learning, though, to relax, but to give yourself the permission. So one of the biggest things, and it's in my Q&A of the things that I share if you come on into my platform, is this selfish? No, it's intentionally meant to not be selfish. It's meant to make you a better mom, sister, daughter, employee, boss, wife, partner, whatever, friend. It's not meant to be selfish.
Anne-Marie, you're not familiar with playing whack-a-mole, right?
You know what? You know what that game is where you hammer the pop up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as huge over here, but I have seen it. And it literally, juggling life does feel like that. It's like, no, can't focus on that. Got to react to that. That can do one. That it's the juggle.
And you're like, stay down.
Just somebody unplug the machine, please.
Right.
Yeah, half the challenge is recognizing that you're playing the game. I mean, you say you don't have it over there, but you just don't have it formally by name. That's about all it really is.
We do have versions of it, but it's not so huge. But yeah, I totally get the analogy, and it's such a good one because we're all juggling so much, and there's so much expectations. And I love what you said, Michelle, about the expectations we put on ourselves. Expecting to be the perfect mum and keeping up with our friends and having the best body, and it's just a juggle. And it's taking that pressure off yourself. It's actually quite freeing. So I love the fact you identified, that a lot of that pressure isn't just from our family and our friends and expectations of employers. It's in here, and we can be a lot kinder to ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
When you learn to be kinder to yourself, that is a challenge, especially if you're not used to doing it. I mean,
indeed.
Your story, Michelle, encompassed that. Do you have recollection, like when you first came to realize what was going on, that you were doing that? Do you recall what steps you took in order to kind of move away from that?
No, at the time. Well, that's what led me to do this, because I think people closest to me started to see a change in me. So this wasn't, I mean, it sort of sounds, when I tell the story, like I had an epiphany one day. It wasn't. It was really an evolution. Yeah. Over time. I just connected the dots to say, I mean, for me, perimenopause really, really hit me. I really struggled with that. And I think that was the time that I said, okay, this is not working for me. Now, what this was, I didn't know at the time. I just knew something had to change. And that evolution of addressing things slowly then evolved into what I've, retrospectively put into what I call Holy Well. But now when I look at it, or I'm asked when such and such was happening, or when you were going through this, breakup, or this financial challenge, or this, empty nesting, because again, my children are 14 months apart. So, the first year it was fine. It was COVID. The second year, when they both were gone, I had a little bit of a, emotional breakdown, but not for long. I mean, I have to be institutionalized or anything, but just an empty nest single mom. And I got to the point where I thought it was great. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you walk yourself through it. But how, what was depleted in me then, and how did I pick? Because sometimes your depletion is little and short, and like if you have a cold and you feel bad, that your cold is going away. You're not going to get hospitalized probably, or die from it. You're grumpy, whatever, you go away. That's acute. But when you have a chronic problem, which is a lot of the women that I'm referring to, whether it's going through menopause to perimenopause, the death of a parent, a divorce, a job loss. I mean, career change hits a lot of people really hard. All of those are like regularly heard in your life examples from people especially when they get up 40 plus. So I just like to, when I talk, use some of my personal life examples to say, this is what happened and this is how I kind of overcame it. But more importantly than that is to say, where did it hit me? And I like to talk when I do, not on podcasts or high level, more about some of the backing in, like how would your spiritual depletion impact your physical? Because it does. I mean, your spiritual is your values. What do you value? Sure. I mean, if you value just beauty and how I look, you may be a very like on top of it, exerciser, very fit, whatever, and you may ignore other things about your health. Whereas vice versa, someone who values good health and how they feel and wants their cholesterol numbers to look good, they're doing possibly the same things for different reasons. But if they get hit in that area, how they are going to build themselves back up is going to come from two different places as well, because their value systems at two different ends of the spectrum as to how they would kind of spiritually self-repair.
So it sounds to me like what you're really saying is it isn't so much what your value system is, it's how you leverage your value system that matters.
With yourself. Your value system is your value system is your value system. And nothing that I, counsel, coach, or in the program, and none of it is about judging anything, because essentially a lot of these are feelings, and feelings, they're not right or wrong. They're feelings, and you're allowed to have them and allowed to feel them and should feel them. And blaming one thing on something that you really deep down know isn't true is just going to make it fester. It's not going to go away. But if you can get to the root of it, and social is a big one for that, especially for women. I mean, girls' trips, all of that, it's wonderful. But a lot of women in particular, more so than men, and this is just, I think, a commonly known fact, will do what I call the obligation tax. Well, I signed up for that potluck because, well, I better, or else I don't want my name on a list of people who didn't. Or I coached the soccer team, or I am on the PTA, or I volunteered for this extra thing at work, or. And so it's like, when is your social fulfillment and enrichment reciprocation versus just obligation? Because if every time you go to happy hour, you don't want to be at happy hour because you're only going because you think you're supposed to show up, or you're going to be the, fear of missing out, or the work friend who didn't go, that's not social wellness, because you're just giving and paying an obligation tax because you have to, not because you are getting enriched or socially well from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. Anne-Marie, I can just tell just the way she jumps off screen on that one. So yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Because that actually answered one of my questions, because when I was thinking about the dimensions that you mentioned, I was thinking, well, would you encourage people like merging those dimensions or keeping them separate, or how to balance one method over another?
So the dimensions themselves are not methods. The dimensions are just a one of 6 parts of you.
Okay.
And we borrow from the full to replenish so let's say that a person has, and this is, I know a couple of people recently that have experienced this, the death. One had a death of a child, a college-age child, and one had a death of a parent. And both were obviously very traumatic, emotional things. Well, for some people, if they have a very rich, full, not obligatory social group, and like, their social wellness is going to help replenish what may be spiritual depletion for them or emotional depletion for them, because they can lean in to that social group and help refill them during it. And especially if it's a group that's, shares their same belief or value systems. The same thing is true for someone who's emotionally depleted because they've been through a divorce. They could lean into social. They could also lean into intellectual, and then they could tie them together. Like you just said, if you go do some of the things that I earlier referenced, like museums or an intellectually stimulating, like a play, sharing a book club that's really book club and not wine club. That's social, one's intellectual, one's social. But if you are doing those, you're putting two together. You're putting intellectual and social together, or you're putting emotional and social together. So you do kind of group them at times, just inherently, it just happens.
Yeah, it does.
But the program that or kind of my way of teaching it is to say, if you know you're depleted here, look at where you're full and find that way to help you rebalance the one that's the most depleted.
Yeah.
Does that fit for you? Is that the way you do something like that, Anne-Marie? Do you look for the thing that's most full?
To be fair, I'm one of those people where I'm more probably reactive, but I also am very good. If I know I need to go out for a walk and just need some nature time, I'll go and do that. If I know I need some quiet time, I'm being overstimulated, I will go and take 5 minutes. If I just want to cook for the family and spend some time, I'll do that. So I'm very good at identifying what I need and when I need it. But maybe not. That's why I liked the pillars, and the fact that you could identify these areas of your life and go, yeah, actually, I'm about an 8 there, I'm a 4 there, I'm a 2 there, I'm a 9 here. And I love that, where you could, okay, I need to focus on this because I'm really low on this, and this would help me, and where I can do that. So,
and I like you being able to figure it out and feel where it is. And not just be told. I'll give you an example of the quiz that you can kind of take that kind of charts out like where you're most depleted and least depleted. One of my kind of beta testers that worked with me is a long time friend, and she took it the first time and said, okay, I 100% knew that physical. She's like, I'm menopausal. I knew that physical would come up as my most depleted. And she said my second one was intellectual, and I was really, really surprised. But we started talking about it. Her father died of Alzheimer's. And she said, I really am more concerned about this than I ever would have thought, because I realized that I need to do that stimulation that's actually going to make not the part on my physical health I thought was bad, but the intellectual part being low is actually going to feed my brain and help me. Is she going to ward off dementia that is from hereditary types? Maybe not. I'm not making those kinds of claims, obviously, but the science is there, and I do use the science. Every claim that I make has a scientific support in the program. It's not Michelle's version of things. But when she took it 3 months later, it was physical and occupational wellness. And she said, I was like sitting there going, I wonder if it's going to come back, because she was having some problems at work. She was getting ready to leave her job. So like, I wouldn't want anybody to do this and have me tell them, well, you're obviously physically depleted. You, Anne-Marie, or any other woman, you would know and decide. And if something's not bothering you in that area and something else is bothering you in another, then that's what you should focus on, because it's your life.
We haven't really talked about it, but you've hinted at, especially with your last couple of comments there, Michelle, this, I don't know what you call it, a test, a survey, this thing that...
It's a quiz. I just call it the Holy Well quiz.
Yeah. Talk about that for a moment, because that might actually be useful to somebody who's trying to figure that stuff out for themselves.
It's 18 questions that you kind of rate yourself 1 through 5 on. And at the end, it gives you a chart, and it charts out your 6 dimensions, and it gives you a number. So you can tell in what order you're the most full or the most depleted. And I recommend people, it's free, it's on my website, but I recommend people who are engaging in this, take it every so often. You can take it as many times as you want. It's like I said, it's free. But, if you were doing the program, I encourage women to do it, once a quarter at least, and see, has it changed? What shifted? And part of the reason I encourage people to retake it if they're engaging is because it resonates and they learn, okay, this makes sense to me. And I think as humans, when things make sense to us, we're more likely to actually do them, work on them, grapple them, and move on to the next stage, because we've got answers.
Yeah. Well, not only that, you also have a foundational baseline. That's why you're suggesting taking it multiple times. You have the baseline to compare against, and then you can see, okay, what shifted? It isn't so much where you score, I would think. It's more what's the change going on. Right.
And you may well know, as my girlfriend that I said, she was surprised on the first round with intellectual, but she was not surprised that occupational showed up on the next one, because she knew inherently before she took it that this is going on in my life. I think she would have been more surprised if it didn't show up as one of the more depleted ones. But it's also then the answer, or the how, that we talked about a while ago, is getting back to, it's baby steps, little things, which is why I call them like micro rituals or one anchor rituals. It's one small thing to anchor you in that particular wellness depletion area, not a bunch all at once, not answers to questions, but not the how. You have to start out, and the micro rituals or the how are unique to each individual person, because one woman may have 20 minutes 3 times a day to dedicate to X, and another may be like, I can give you 5. And I'm like, well, it's not me. You're giving them to yourself. But what we want you to do is whatever change you're making is to have it be a small habit that you grow into a permanent change in your life, not a forced, this is on my calendar or my watch, and therefore I have to do it. The goal is to get you to need that time. And we talk a lot about setting boundaries, communicating those needs with your family, friends, work, life, wherever it is that you're actually trying to make a change in.
As you're talking there, the term wellness is coming into my mind, particularly because, especially here in the US, I think it's probably true in the UK as well, but particularly here in the US, wellness is used in an inferential way rather than a directly defined way. It's usually wellness defined as you don't have this kind of sickness, you've been tested for that kind of potentially bad situation. It's all an inversion rather than having its own individual definition. And I'm curious, do you have like a direct definition for what wellness is?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because wellness is, I mean, you could put it on a continuum, and I could say, because, my program's called Holy Well, obviously WHOLLY, how wholly well are you? But it's kind of like when the United States decided that pain was the 5th vital sign. We could all experience the exact same stimuli right now and go write down a number of what the pain level of that was to us, or the touch level, and all have a different answer. And wellness is the same way. There's not an absolute. And I personally, in the core of this, there's nobody who is 100% well all the time in all of these dimensions. Maybe for like an hour one day, but something is gonna whack-a-mole hit you. You're gonna either drop a ball, something's gonna change, and so it's being prepared to be as well as you can. And I think that's part of what it means to be really, really well.
And you're right. I think that it is a scale, and it's a very individualized scale. It's going to be different for every person. The reason I brought the question up is I've just found that, particularly with terms like wellness, there's a very strong tendency to define in terms of sickness, but it's almost like asking somebody their political beliefs, or asking somebody about what their favorite kind of entertainment is or whatever. They'll tell you what it is they don't like. And they have a hard time describing what it is they actually do like. It's a challenge. I mean, it's not something that we as a culture, as people, are encouraged to do. Most of the time, we're encouraged to avoid the pain rather than to go after what it is that we actually want. So, to me, it's important.
I agree. And I mean, especially in the U.S. and I mean the Western world in general, but in the U.S. we're very give me a pill and make it better. Programmed. And so there isn't really a pill for occupational wellness. I mean, just as an example.
It's probably just as well when you think about it, but
I think there have been people who've tried, but probably hasn't ended well.
Write me a prescription for that wellness pill, will you?
Yeah.
Michelle, can I ask you a question about sort of the goals around how you work with people? Do you work on short-term goals, long-term goals, or both? How the short-term feed into those long-terms? How do you focus on keeping people moving forward?
So what I have is the first 3 of, I call them explorations, like the maiden voyage, where you learn the what, the why, and the how, so that you have that foundation. Yeah. So that foundation is kind of what gets the person into understanding the 6 dimensions, their behavioral patterns, and then creating those micro rituals. So that's the beginning. Those are what, for your purposes of your question, would be more short term, but they're meant to build for you to make long term. So it depends on if you go deeper into the program where you start to get into borrowing from one dimension to the next, and also really deep dives into each of the dimensions so that you kind of can get into more of a long-term planning. Because when you look at short-term's learning, the processes, the what, the why, the how. The long-term is you being able to implement it without my program. Yeah. Because you inherently know you would have access and the resources to go back to it anytime you wanted. But to be something hits you, and I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, somebody calls you and there's a major crisis and you go, oh, there goes my emotional wellness. That's not necessarily your first thought. But when you experience something that causes a depletion in one of those areas, the long term is for you to be able to say, okay, I can process where this is going to hit me, and I can think through where I might need to borrow, or what I might need to do differently, or what ritual I need to put in for myself to change so that I can get through this. So someone who's lost a parent recently, one of the things that she did, she had to take some time every evening and explain to her family, I need a minute to process this. Like, I may leave, I may go have tea on the porch, I may go on a walk, but she said, I don't want you, you know, Mom, are you okay? Like, no, just give me my 15 minutes to do that. And for her, that was how she got through making dinner and doing everything she had to do, because she knew she had that was her anchor ritual time. And for her, she's not maybe going to need that exact ritual forever, because it is to get her through that. So everybody's different in the short term, long term too, the same as we're all different. But anyway, the patterns and getting yourself understanding is the short term. The long term is how you apply it yourself. Yeah. After year.
So a large piece of this is know yourself.
Know yourself in a different way, or at least a different approach. I mean, all of the research that I did on the National Wellness Institute, it's very, well, first of all, it's 50 years old. So it was done originally before we had apps and and all of the things we have now that people can do. So
that's probably why I didn't hear of it. Nobody put it into an app, so I didn't know.
Right. Well, I don't know that anybody would necessarily know what to do with it. I mean, like, you can name them, but if you don't have okay, great. I mean, you know, we get off of this podcast today and you may process it for a bit, but if you don't aren't interested to dig into it enough, you're probably going to think to yourself, well, that's my spiritual wellness or something, because you've heard enough in this. But when you dig into it, that's when you process it into being a part of your life and how you deal with your wellness on the whole, not just as one dimension at a time.
Can you give an example? Like, well, that's abstract. Let's see if we can make that more concrete. Give us an example of somebody actually doing that, of making that kind of discovery and identifying it that way.
So you're saying, like what I said a minute ago, where they long-term then can take it and realize it? Yeah. So I think one of the best ones for that is, especially for women, is the emotional. Physical is the easy one, but so I'll do a little bit harder one. Emotional. Women are a lot of times accused of being overly emotional, and it's just kind of being used as usually not a very nice way of saying that, you know, we're going to cry or be upset, or
we're dramatic,
we're dramatic, whatever the case may be, just the females. And so if a person is emotionally unwell, and I do not mean this in a mental health standpoint, I mean emotionally unwell because they have had some sort of a major hit. We've talked about loss, divorce, all of those things. It doesn't matter what it is that's causing your emotional well-being to be, you know, in the dumps, but it is. So you're scoring low on that. What the goal would be is that you go, okay, I know, because I've done this, that I am emotionally unwell right now because, and I also know that I would, as a tilt-a-whirl rider, me, or a Ferris wheel rider, or whatever the case may be, would normally address it this way, or my first reaction is to, my gut instinct is to. And so the goal of this then is the person takes it and says, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not just going to react, because I have the tools to know. I just have to find one small thing to start to get this under control, to where it grows and builds while I allow myself the time to process it, to see if this works. So for the woman that I just gave you the example that needed to take the time because she had lost a parent and wanted to have set aside check-in like with herself time, that was temporary utilization of that one anchor or that ritual, but the skill was transferable. So the next time she has something that goes on, it may not be that she needs to take the 15 minutes. It may be a completely different scenario, but then she's transferred that skill, knowledge, learning base that she got into another dimension, another life situation, another depleted area, or it could be the reverse. She could have borrowed from spiritual to fill emotional, and now she could have depleted spiritual and filled emotional. That's life.
Well, it's also, a lot of it is self-knowledge too. I mean, you have to be kind of in tap and in touch with yourself to know, well, this is not only the big thing that's going on in my life, but this is the part of me that one of the 6 wellness pillars, or whatever you want to call them, the dimensions. This is the one that I tend to lean on the most. You have to know that about yourself. You have to have identified that. That's part of what that inner work is we were talking about earlier. You have to know what's going on with me.
And you have to be willing. You have to be willing to do that. I mean, this is just like anything else. If you are not willing, I mean, you can read everything from, Stephen Covey's original 7 Habits of Highly Effective People to, Let Them by Mel Robbins now, if you want to. But reading the book, you don't get to put it up to your head and it makes a change. I mean, you have to apply or want to apply what you've learned, which is why I tried to say, everything you start with has to be very simple, because if you give yourself this big chore, it won't stick, it won't last, and you won't have any change.
Not that people haven't tried to like put the book under the pillow to see if it actually worked and absorbed in. I mean, people tried that,
Osmosis has never worked for me in the literary department, but yeah.
Does that tick the intellectual part of you?
If you sleep with the book?
Because that I can fit in.
And I will have to say, as a caveat, the intellectual stimulation has to be something that you're truly reading or doing for pleasure. Like, I can't get a policy book, because I do healthcare policy work, and read that and say, well, I like this. Well, I like it because it is influencing my occupational wellness and my doing time. It isn't truly stimulating a part of me that doesn't already get stimulated by my job. So that, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it can be taking a pottery class. It can be a podcast that's on. I mean, I have a friend listening to a podcast I was like, what is this that you're listening to? And it's those 2 women that were in the Playboy Mansion years ago, now coming back doing like a What It Was Really Like podcast, like story funny thing. And it's just completely brainless funny to her, so she's like, it's my, I don't know. And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily intellectually stimulating, but to each his own.
Learning about other people's lives and different,
different
perspectives.
But she's taking her brain away from what it normally does all the time. Yeah. And so that, that's part of the puzzle.
And that's also part of the self-knowledge piece, because if you know what does distract you, so that you can basically take a quick break away from whatever it is that's hanging over your head, that's going to do, not only is it going to contribute to greater wellness for you, it's also going to contribute to greater perspective. The hardest thing, I think, in the hardest challenge in dealing with any kind of problem in life is seeing it from a new perspective. It's the fact that we're kind of stuck in that one perspective that made a problem in the first place, because we just can't seem to get off that one perspective.
Right. As a single parent, my phone is glued to me, like, and I have gotten, now one of the rituals that I did is I had to start leaving my phone. I mean, now I actually will. I mean, I have young adult children, so I'm not as concerned, obviously, as I once was, but I will leave it and even go like to dinner or to the beach or do something, not for, extended periods, because I do have aging parents and, adult children, but I would never have done that before. But it's training myself and giving myself that permission to say, we didn't used to have cell phones when I was young. Somebody had to track you down. So if something's really a crisis, someone will track me down. And I've also told, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not on call. I'm not going to save anyone's life. And I don't hold the, nuclear codes. So I feel like I probably can take a couple hours away and no one is going to suffer for it. But I had to train myself to do that, literally, that it was okay. And that was setting the boundaries, giving myself the permission to do it, but also understanding the why behind it being so hard.
I think it may be somewhat generational, but I'm a tech person, so I have the tech background for it. But I was never one who had my phone glued to my ear. I always have my phone with me, but how much do I use it every day? I don't even run the battery down halfway. I mean, it's very little attention from me at all. So I'm always fascinated by, especially how younger generations, because it was such a big part of their lives growing up, they're so attached to it and they're so fascinated by it and so forth. I kind of get it, because it definitely plays into what their life experience has been. It's just, from somebody like, in my perspective, my generation is like, wow, really, you want to give yourself that much phone time? But that's what people do. And I mean, I've had guests here on the program talk about how it can become an addiction. And I remember the first time somebody suggested that to me, I said, an addiction? Really? I can't bring myself to do it, more than 10 minutes worth in a day. But you know what? That's what people often do today.
And it isn't just teenagers. I mean, there are a lot of senior citizens that are very engaged with sometimes puzzles and different things, which is, but talking to grandkids, FaceTiming. I mean, mine was just the fear of them not being able to reach me, as if, that was going to be a crisis. And so whatever the reasoning is, because the reason you just gave, Walt, is equally a reason to put your phone down, because you are overloading yourself with it. An example of another woman that I've worked with, she had to use one of her micro rituals. And I said, just do 2 days a week. Don't try and do it every day, because you'll be like, I can't. To give herself like 15 minutes before she knew she was going to bed. And she said, you got to leave your phone in the other room. Like, can't, like, because she was too, you're in the bed, you're not sleeping, picking it up, like, what's going on? And so 2 becomes 3 becomes 4. And you develop the habit. And in her case, she was sleeping better, then she wasn't stressing out, because a lot of people get on and start looking at Instagram and other social media things and feel bad about myself, or they spend money because I'm shopping on there. And, the phone is a whole other, like, should almost be its own dimension.
Well, it has been sometimes here on the show, that's for sure. We've had guests who have gone into great depth about all the different ways people could be addicted to their phone. So yeah, it's a thing. I get that. It's just not a thing I've really had. I mean, literally my attention level with a phone, again, I have the tech background, so I can handle it easily. But in terms of the attention level, if I have something that I'm doing on the phone that gives me more than 1 minute worth of attention, it's a record. I mean, I just don't do that.
You're an anomaly.
I am an anomaly. I'm like, am I part of this culture? What's going on here? But seriously, I mean, that to me, it's an amazing thing that people, and yet I see it all the time. I mean, all you have to do is go out in the public, and all over the place, you're just seeing everybody on their phones.
Right.
I'm baffled by it.
Yeah.
But that just shows we're all different, and that's a cool thing. One thing that we haven't done, though, is we mentioned your quiz, and we mentioned your program, but we haven't mentioned where to find any of this stuff and how to reach out to you. I presume you like having people reach out to you. I mean, am I wrong? I mean,
sure. No, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's give people a clue about that.
Yeah. So I originally created it as a kind of thinking of it as a lifestyle brand, and it's called Navigating Your World. And so it has to do with everything being your world, your way. And the Holy Well program sits inside of that. And so it's just navigatingyourworld.com. That's what I am on my website. The quiz is on there. And then there are links within that to different types of offerings. But I also am on Instagram. I don't do a lot on Insta, but I have a piece called the Holy Well Lens that I do on LinkedIn. And that's a weekly, 1 dimension a week. And then when I get to week 7, I kind of tie them together for whatever the topic we were talking about is. And that's in LinkedIn. And that's just my name under Michelle Ford. But the navigatingyourworld.com is pretty much where everything is.
That's the place to find it all. All right.
The place to find it all. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. I love that. Well, we have a couple things we'd like to wrap up each program with. And the first one is where I go to Anne-Marie because, well, I don't know if you were aware of this. Anne-Marie was originally a listener, and she became a co-host after a number of years. And as a result of that, she brings the listener perspective in a way that I've had I think I counted at one point 50 co-hosts that I've had over the 14-year period I've been doing this.
Wow.
But I think she's one of a very, very small handful that were a guest, that were a listener first. And so that's why I think she brings the listener perspective. And actually she validates that because every time I ask her to do this, she shows me the perspective like, oh yeah, that is how the listener would think about it. So, these really tie it together for us today. So Anne-Marie, how have you been thinking about today's program? What's it all tying together for you with?
I always feel the pressure after that introduction. For me, this was totally relatable for me because I had a change of career. I went through menopause. I lost my mum all in a very short period of time and completely lost myself. So what we've identified a few times and mentioned is how these dimensions help you to get to know yourself again, or not everybody's so self-aware. So for me, I liked that fact that you could go, okay, this is where I'm focusing, this is where I'm good, this is where I'm bad, or what I need to work on. So it just realigns you and brings you back to you. So I really loved that. And I think having that focus of the dimensions to get to know yourself, it just directs you in the areas of that you can just keep moving forward and have those goals. And I love the baby steps, taking those baby steps because you're already overwhelmed. That's why you're here. You're already banging the moles. So taking those baby steps and being kind to yourself. I didn't really do it justice then, but it's all in my head.
The baby steps are huge. They really are. I mean, and giving yourself the grace that you're making a difference with baby steps is really important because it's giving you the opportunity to grow. If you go all in hot all at once, you're much more likely to not give yourself the opportunity to grow.
Yeah, very true.
And I think it builds your confidence as you do it along the way because you're like, I've done this, I can change, and actually, oh, I can do this, and oh, look at me, and it just builds that confidence, that momentum, and that inner knowing.
And by the way, I think you did give it justice. So you cut yourself a little slack on that one, Anne-Marie. You really did tie it together very nicely.
Cheers, boss.
One other thing I like to do, Michelle, before we wrap up is, and this is a 21st century thing that I noticed, I guess it's about 5 or 6 years ago. I first noticed it, maybe 7 now. But because we live in the 21st century where you are, I forget where you are. You're located somewhere in the South, but I can't remember where
Charleston,
you are.
South Carolina.
South Carolina. I'm in Connecticut. She's in the UK, and we're in each other's living room. That was not possible 30 years ago. Today, we take it for granted. It's normal. It's just the way things are now. And so it's kind of changed the way we do things and the way we think about things and the way we reach out to each other and the way we connect with each other and so forth. That's what leads people like you to come onto the program. So many people who want to give back are coming onto the program to give back. And they do other podcasts. I'm sure you do other ways too of reaching out and giving back. And in the process, well, I mean, we experience it here too, just through what we do here on the show. We end up helping people in ways we don't know about and that we don't get credit for. And to me, that's a deficit that we need to fill because we deserve the credit for these different things that we're doing, that we're helping people for. So Michelle, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, and never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't know about just because you're doing all this sharing, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing because you are making a difference in this world.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was very enjoyable.
And we're really glad that you came on to share. So thank you for doing that as well.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.